NeuroFlow is a veteran-founded healthcare technology and analytics company providing military and government organizations with real-time, individual, and population-level health insights in order to increase individual effectiveness, readiness, and overall wellness. As the leading military-grade behavioral health solution in the market, NeuroFlow is actively working with the U.S. Air Force across multiple sites to enhance and scale the care delivered by administrators and medical personnel while empowering airmen to manage their own mental health and build resilience for peak performance. To learn more, visit www.neuroflow.com. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Veteran Trash Talk Female Warrior Edition. I am your host, Leah. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 8. And I am so excited to have Ms. Marjorie here with us today. Before we get started, I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor, NeuroFlow. So make sure you're checking them out at neuroflow.com. I want to introduce Ms. Marjorie. I'm so excited. Something actually that stuck out to me about you when I heard you speaking in this room was when I heard you say that you had been not owning the fact that you're a veteran for 30 years. And I thought, this is my people right here. I need to speak with her. So I'm so excited to have you on and get to know you better. So Marjorie, I'm just going to let you kind of take over. Tell us about your military time, and then we're going to move forward from there and talk about your business and what you're doing. But we want to know more about you and your history first. So take it away.
Okay, well, thank you. I never really talked about it. So this is all new. I'll tell you, I was back in the Navy. I was a torpedo man in the Navy back in 1987. And that's when I went in. I was there less than 24 months. I was a torpedo man. And to tell you the truth, I was going to join the service. I was going to join the Marines. That was something that I always wanted to do. I said, I'm going to be a Marine. I had the posters in my room. I mean, this was something that it was the dream to be a Marine. Tell you, as soon as I graduated high school, on my graduation day, I went with my cap and gown to the recruiter's office and I said, I'm ready to sign up. And the Marine that was sitting there said to me, well, you could either be a nurse or secretary. And I said, I don't want to be either one of those. And he said, well, that's all I can offer you. And I said, well, there goes that dream. And sitting across from him was the Navy recruiter. So he said, come over here and talk to me. And he gave me other options. Mm-hmm. So obviously, I originally went in as an airman. I had to wait 6 months to go in. I was living in New York City at the time. I was a New York City kid. I just wanted to leave the city. Mm. And so I had to wait for 6 months. And I finally went in January of 1987 as an airman. And during boot camp, I changed to a torpedo man because they gave me the options I could either go to electrician school, torpedo man school, or, I had to wait like another year for another training school to open. Wow. So I said, so what's torpedo man about? You're going to work with weapons. You're going to work with nuclear weapons. You're going to have, you're going to work with guns. You're going to, take care of everything. I was like, I love it. I want it. So that's what I did. And I was stationed in Orlando. This is back in the 80s. They had a base in Orlando, Florida. Mm-hmm. And they sent me to Orlando. I came to Orlando and I did also my training, torpedo man training in Orlando. So I did that. And then I was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina. At that time I met the man who was my husband, who became my husband in training school. He was a submariner who already had experience, way older than I was. I was very young, naive, and got married very young. And I got stationed in Charleston, South Carolina. He was stationed there. And he was a submariner at the same on the same base that I was on. And I went to the weapons department on the boat. I was on the Frank Cable, the USS Frank Cable, also known as the Love Boat. So yeah, that's another story.
What? Yeah, I'd love to know that story.
So anyway, so they had us do it was like 6-7 months kitchen duty before we were even allowed to go into our department. It was just so shocking. I mean, for someone who was raised thinking, I'm going to join the Marines, I'm going to, I'm so proud of my uniform to arrive on the base and, people were so not proud of their uniform, and it was just so, it was just such a messy place. And then finally I went to the weapons department. We didn't have many women there. It was very much um, a time of, what are you doing here? You should be home barefoot and pregnant. That was told to me many times. I think the only thing that saved me was because I had such an attitude. I was raised with a bunch of brothers, and I was not, I never allowed anyone to get away with anything. And I think that that's what saved me, because I was very much hated in my department, I would say. The chiefs didn't care for me. Their excuse was, if you didn't put up with, the BS that was going on in the department, or if you didn't allow someone to come on to you, or you weren't part of the games, then you're a whiner or you're a bitch. That was one or the other, right? So that was the thing. And I was the person that whenever we went out to sea, or whenever we were out at sea, I would, the workday is over, I'm going to my rack, and I don't ever want to, I don't hang out with anybody. That would do the same thing. I would go to work and then leave when it was time for me to leave. I'm not going to say it was all bad. I had some great friends. I had some great people looking out for me. I did have my, when I was working kitchen duty, I remember Chief Kokia. He was an amazing senior chief. He always looked out for the hardest working people. I mean, so we had some good people that looked out for me, but then also I had people that I felt that should have had my back that didn't have my back. And those were definitely the chiefs in the weapon department. They couldn't stand that I didn't go along with the games. They couldn't stand that I was, I don't know. I really don't know what the reason was. I don't really care what the reason was. The point was that you had someone who was there that was young, that instead of mentoring in a positive way, it ended up being a negative thing.
And you were there taking your job seriously.
Yeah.
And not dealing with any stupid stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because my plan was originally was, I'm going to go in, I'm going to be a lifer, I'm coming in for 20 years. I mean, when we had the chance to do with the college program, I was like, I don't need to do any of that because I'm going to be a lifer. I'm not planning to leave the military. I'm going to do my 20 years. This is my dream. And I took everything that I did very seriously. I mean, our training school was very difficult. I mean, it was just such important work I thought that we were doing. I mean, we were taking care of all the weapons. I mean, with all the wars we've had since then, you hear about tomahawks, you hear about harpoons. Trust me, I was there taking care of those things. I used to take naps on top of them, which was a thing that I shouldn't have been doing. But yes, we were down in the magazines. We would spend months at a time inside in the magazines and just sleeping with the bombs and everything else on the boats. So, I mean, the boats that had the capability of carrying bombs. That's what I should have said. But anyway, so it was just such a hard environment to be in. And the men that I worked with, there were some that they were just, what are you doing here? What are you're such a whiner, and you should be barefoot and pregnant. I even had one guy and try to come at me like wanting to fight me. And luckily I had some guys in our department were like, what are you going to do? You're going to hit her? I mean, it was one of these guys that always had something to say. And it was just such a difficult environment. And we had no support. We had no support from our chiefs. Eventually, I got pregnant. There were two other women in the department that got pregnant. And that was kind of like a target on my back. It was like, let's work her as hard as we can. And I mean, they had me moving 100-foot hoses from one side of the pier to the other side of the pier for no reason. And the only reason that I didn't have to do it, but every time I would go down there and they had me doing stupid work, there was always some submariner from some boat or somebody like, what are you doing? Here, let's help you. And I would just watch, and the chiefs would be standing on the, on the edge of the boat, just with their hands crossed, angry. I even had one of the female officers on the boat. One time I was walking through and, and I was real skinny and I was real, pregnant and everything else. And she came up to me. I never met her before. I don't even remember her name. And she said to me, she said, aren't you pregnant? And I was wearing my regular uniform. And I said, yeah. And she goes, I suggest you go get a pregnancy uniform tonight. She said, because everybody on the boat needs to know what's happening. I was security on the boat. And that was the thing. I know in the Navy, we were usually have Marines that would take care of the boats. And we were security. The weapons department was the security on the boat. So, I had to do the 4-hour run across the boat, 13 stories up and down, carrying, a gas mask, a gun, just all this weight on me.
Right.
And I couldn't have weighed more than 115 pounds. I don't know. I was pretty small. At least I thought it was tiny. Anyway, so that was the experience that I had. And the other two women, I have to tell you, the other two women that I worked with, They had miscarriages.
Mm.
They were made fun of because why would they sit there and cry? I mean, they never met the baby. This is one of the comments that one of the chiefs said, like, what she's being ridiculous. Like, what is she crying about? And I'm standing over here listening. And, it's not like she met the baby. That was the comment. And I thought, what the hell am I in? I mean, this is just the worst environment. I was horribly sick. I had to be hospitalized because I was just not eating and everything else. And I thought, I would just pray every night, baby, hold on. And finally, I think it was, God's intervention was finally our boat was going to Italy. Now, what was happening was my husband was on a submarine and I was on a boat. Both of us were sea duty. That was not allowed. You either had to have someone on shore duty and someone on sea duty when they were married. They would not do it for us. I mean, we submitted paperwork, we tried to get off the boat. We were trying to figure out everything and they fought us on everything. At the time, it was because we were in torpedomen. We were both torpedomen and that was considered a class A training, which is you're not allowed to get out for pregnancy. You're not allowed to get out for any reasons. And because they spent so much money on training us, it was like they made our life a living hell.
Yeah.
So finally, our boat was going to Italy and they fought me. The boat was going to be stationed over there. And they finally said, okay, we're going to get you off this boat. And they were sending me to the weapons department in Charleston, the weapons station. So I said, okay, well, that's finally. But in the meantime, every day was a nightmare. I mean, when I was on the boat, I don't know if you remember, and people probably don't remember, you're way too young. There was a submarine that caught on fire in the middle of the ocean. It was called the Batfish. And pretty much it was an old diesel submarine. The batteries got wet, it caught on fire, people died on it, and they brought it to Charleston. And we, as weapon department, we shut down the base and they put me to stand watch like on 90-degree weather, wearing, full gear. We were standing there with M16s. I mean, we were, controlling the whole pier. And I thought I was going to die. Here I am pregnant and I had just gotten out of the hospital because I was so dehydrated. And they opened that boat up and the smell of it, and to this day, I can still smell it. I can taste it.
Wow.
And I just started throwing up over the side of the boat.
Yeah.
And, we had the admirals, we had all of the people on, all the big guns standing there. And here I am throwing up over the side of the boat. And the chief started screaming at me and he's like, get her off the top of the boat. I mean, he was just screaming at the top of his, get out of here, get out of here. So anyway, their punishment was,
never been there in the first place.
I shouldn't have been up there in the first place because I had light duty. That was another thing. They were like, well, if you can stand for 15 minutes, then you stand guard 15 minutes and you can sit another 10, but you're going to be on the top of that boat. So anyway, they send me up there and the chief finally comes up here only because the admirals were on the pier. And he said, you're going to be punished. This was he said to me. He said, you're going to be punished. And he said, your duty, you're going to be stuck in the bottom of the boat. So they literally sent me 13 stories down on the bottom of the boat. And I thought, what kind of punishment is this? This is amazing. I'm in the shade. I'm inside 13. I'm underwater. The boat's like 70 degrees out there. And that was my watch. It was like from now on, that was my punishment. It was that I was going to be all by myself, 13 stories by myself for 4 hours. I thought, what wonderful punishment. So anyway, I thought, okay, well, this was a blessing. So anyway, they finally get me off the boat. Here was the kicker, and this is a story I like to tell people. So the day the boat, because they waited till the last minute, the boat was leaving to Italy like the next day. They waited till the last minute. They would not let me off the boat. They said, okay, now at 4:30 in the afternoon, you can go get your new orders. I went to personnel, and God has a hand in everything, I tell you. So I sat there in personnel and, and maybe right now the Navy will kick themselves in the ass when they hear this, but I sat in personnel. I walked up there and this woman is working there. And she said, you're Guzman? I said, yeah. And she goes, I got your records here. She said, I'll be right back. I sat there for 45 minutes waiting on this woman to come back. I don't know where the hell she went. I said, well, here's my files. Well, shit, I'm taking them. I left. I mean, the boat's leaving in the morning. I grabbed my file. It had my name on it. It was a sealed record. So I left. The next day I reported to the weapons station. I got to the weapons station. They send me over there. That's where they used to send all the pregnant women, all the pregnant torpedo men. So I get over there and one of the chiefs there says to me, that's what we need, another pregnant one. I don't want you here. I said, okay. I grabbed my orders out of his hand I went back to personnel at the weapons station and I said, so I got there and this chief told me, another pregnant woman, we don't want you here. I grabbed my orders, I'm back. I said, I don't know what you want me to do. I tell you, God is good, because standing right next to me was the master chief of the base. He says, I need an assistant. Do you know how to type? I knew how to type with 2 fingers. I said, yes, of course I know how to type. And he said, okay. Well, my chain of command was the senior chief of the base, the master chief of the base, the XO, and the CO. That was my chain of command. And I went to work for the senior chief of the base and for the master chief. And I was their assistant. And this is back in the 80s. We didn't have computers. They brought us a computer. It was this huge box. I sat there and they gave me the manual. I was really good at looking at procedures and protocols. And I sat there and I read an entire manual on how to turn on the computer. It was the most wonderful thing that happened, because I had such a horrible pregnancy and the master chiefs were like, you're not feeling well, go home. Okay, if you don't feel well tomorrow, just call us. Oh. And I was there until I was 8 months pregnant. I worked with the master chief and the senior chief. They were amazing people. And one day talking to master chief, the master chief said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, by then my husband, his submarine got stationed in Maine. So he's in Maine, I'm in Charleston. I'm thinking I'm going to be a single parent. I got married. This is not how life is supposed to be, right? Right. And I said, to tell you the truth, Master Chief, I said, I'm so disappointed in this, in what's happened in the military and the experience that I've had. I said, I just want to be with my husband. I just want to get out and be with my husband. He goes, well, you can't. He said, because the day that you picked up your new orders, you signed page 13, meaning that once you get those new orders, you can't ever get out. And I said, I didn't sign a page 13. I grabbed my orders and I walked off. And he said, and there's the loophole. Master Chief went to personnel. That page was never signed, meaning pretty much I didn't have orders. And Master Chief said, you want out, I'm gonna get you out. And he followed the CO of the base every day at his golf course and said, we need to let Marjorie out. We need to let Goose out. They used to call me Goose. We need to let Goose out. And finally, the CO was so tired, he said, whatever the hell you want, Master Chief, just leave me alone. And so Master Chief was able to get me out of the military when I was 8 months pregnant and send me up to Maine afterwards to go see, be with my husband at the time.
Wow.
And that's how I was able to get out, because I thought, what's going to happen? Because he said, if you give birth, he said, your orders are going to change. He said, and I don't know where they're going to send you. And I just kept thinking, I don't know. I mean, I didn't have any family. I was alone in South Carolina. I didn't, my family, the few family I had lived up in New York, and there was no way I wanted to raise a child in New York. And I was like, I'm a married woman. I should be with my husband. So then anyway, so I got out. I ended up going to Maine once I got out, and I said, well, I'm a veteran. I should have some kind of benefit or something. And they said, well, no, you did less than 24 months. You get no benefit. I said, well, is there anybody that can help me do a CV? No. Resume? No. So eventually, my husband, he was in the service. We ended up getting stationed back in Charleston. By then, I had 2 children. I hadn't worked because I couldn't find any work. I thought, what can I do? I mean, in the military, I was assistant to the master chief. I ran, I helped when I was in kitchen duty, I helped the senior chief there. I was a torpedo man. I knew policy procedures. I knew how to read a manual. I knew how to read protocols. I knew how to do all of this stuff. And all of a sudden I get out and it's like, all you can do is be a security guard. So I thought, I have 2 small children. There's no way that I'm risking my life to take care of cars or a grocery store. I mean, because that was the only place that they would give me any work. And in the meantime, I'm putting up with a bad marriage because I was dependent on this person because I couldn't find any work. And I thought, what did I do? I mean, all I had was a high school diploma. I had been, I had one of the best trainings. I thought, I'm incredibly intelligent because I know that. I mean, I was a freaking genius. And so then, I thought, what can I do? And all I could do was be a security guard. So I stayed in a bad marriage for a few years. And I was married to one of those sailors, has a woman in every port kind of guy. And so eventually what I did was I found, like, through unemployment, they were doing a welding program. So I went and took a welding class and I became a welder. And I went to work for General Dynamics and they used to build submarines. Before that, I had worked, I think, part-time at the shipyard doing inventory in like 200-degree weather rooms, doing inventory at the Navy shipyard. Here I was, and I thought, I can't believe that this is where my life is. I mean, this is all I can do. this is all that gets out of it. And no help from anyone. So I thought, so you feel lost. You're like, what the hell did I do with my life? Maybe I should have stayed in. Maybe, maybe I should have taken the VA, what is it? The college thing.
The
I was like,
bill,
yeah,
yeah.
the GI Bill. I never put a penny into, because I thought no one, I had no one to help me, even in this, no one to advise me. That was the thing. I
Right.
had no one. I was alone in the world. And here I am married and alone in the world with only my children. Um, so eventually I went to work at General Dynamics as a welder. And then I was doing pipe fitting. And again, it was the same environment. They hate you because you're a woman. So they ended up sending me in the state department, and I became a sandblaster. I sandblasted with diamond grit for 3 years working in that damn company. And by then I got divorced. And I thought, I'm going to take care of my kids. I married a deadbeat, so he never paid a day of child support. I think he paid like a couple of years, and I had to fight him every single day. I felt like the only Hispanic in South Carolina, because that was another thing, going to court as a Hispanic woman. I mean, I was treated like garbage, and I could think, I'm not one to sit there and complain about things like that, but it was, I had to go to court to fight him for child support one day. And, the judge said to me, what kind of house do you live in? I said, well, I have a 4-bedroom house. He goes, you have a 4-bedroom house? I thought, well, shit, where the hell am I?
Right.
But I'm not taking my kids to New York. They're going to be raised with a backyard.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I did that, and I worked for that damn company, and finally they shut it down. They laid everybody off, and they had to pay for a retraining. This is when Bill Clinton became president. He shut the Navy base and everything in South Carolina. It was a Republican state, so he shut down everything that was happening in the Republican states. And I was one of the last employees to leave General Dynamics, so they had to retrain us. So I ended up getting a JTPA program, and that's when I finally got to college. So I got to go to college. I became a med tech. I worked in a laboratory, which was, it was great because I wasn't in the weather, but I was making like $5 less an hour than I was when I was working out there like a crazy person, digging ditches and working out there sandblasting. But the whole time, my drive was my children. And I never talked about being in the military anymore. When I went to work for General Dynamics, it didn't matter, right? I took every single class that they had. I did every blueprinting class. I did everything. And I was like, look, guys, I'm a vet. And they were like, who cares? And it was like, okay, there was no VA there. The VA always said to me, well, you never did, you did less than 24 months. We can't help you. I mean, nothing, no help. And I was like, okay. So I just felt lost. Like, okay, what do I do now? So now here I am raising my kids. And I thought, I mean, that was my drive, my children. My children was my drive. And the fact that I don't quit, I'm not a quitter. I'm just going to keep on fighting. And the more you tell me you can't do it, the more I'm going to prove you wrong, and it's, I'm going to say, I'm not going to give up, and we're always going to eat. So I put up with all kinds of crazy. I finally started working in a microbiology lab at the Medical University of South Carolina. And I worked there for about 7-8 months. And I thought, this is for the birds. I can't work in a lab for the rest of my life. And I went across the street to the college there. The medical university had a bachelor's program, and I got my bachelor's in 1 year. And by then I got remarried again. I had met someone else, and I got remarried, and that marriage didn't last not even 2 years after being together for a long time, living apart when we finally moved in together. And I think that has a lot to do with not trusting, not believing in anyone. And so then it's one of those things that you're wondering, like maybe now, 20 years later, I sit there and say, I could have been more of a patient woman. I could have been more of a trusting wife. I could have been, there were things, it wasn't all his fault. There was a lot of it my fault. I was always paranoid. I was always hypervigilant because I always thought someone's coming out to hurt me. Someone is gonna, tell me you can't do this. What the hell are you doing here? So it was something that I took out on him. So the second marriage didn't work at all. Even though I sat there and I thought, this is a man of my dreams, and it just didn't work because I didn't know how to make it work. Because I just didn't have the skills to make things work because I was always on the defensive.
Well, you'd been fighting that whole time.
Exactly.
To be respected, to be accepted, to be,
yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that now as an older woman, I sit there and I think, I was like, there's no way I'm going to allow my husband to roll his eyes at me. There's no way anybody's going to give me an attitude. There's no way I'm going to put up with this disrespect. And it was always about respect, or I'm not going to allow it to be disrespected, because that's how I felt when I was in the military and when I got out. And it destroyed our marriage. I really believe it destroyed our marriage. I see it now years later, but at that moment I didn't see it. I didn't have any patience, and I was just like, my life is my children. This is it. I have to protect these children. And I felt like that was my job, was just only to protect them, not my life, not worry about me, but just my children, because they were females, and I didn't want them to live through what I lived through. I
Right.
didn't ever want anyone to say to them, you can't do this. You don't belong here. Um, so, you know, I finally got my bachelor's degree, and I got divorced a second time. And you're thinking, what the hell's going on with life? And, like I said, no one ever knew I was in the military. I never mentioned being a veteran. So I ended up moving to a little tiny town in Hampton, South Carolina. And at that moment, I was coordinating programs at for the medical students, for them to, all the young doctors. We were trying to get them to come to the rural areas of South Carolina. I did that for a few years. I coordinated programs. I mean, I was doing 4 different jobs. It was amazing. And you feel challenged. Um, and then I went to work for the doctor, the small town doctor. And he said, hey, you know anything about clinical research, which is what I do now? And I said, I don't know. And he said, I have the Code of Federal Regulations. I said, I know how to read that. So I read the Code of Federal Regulations. I said, I can work for you. So I went to work for him, and we opened up a research site in Hampton, South Carolina. And after that, I went back to the medical university in Charleston. I worked there for a little bit, and I thought, this is not for me, working at a university. So I packed my bags and I moved to Florida. And I came to Florida, and it's been a blessing, because everything was great since I got here. There's always been something great, but it's always been a struggle. Now, the bottom line, I mean, it's that's been 20 years since I came to Florida. It's been a long time. And as you can see, I have my site, but I became an auditor eventually. I worked with different pharma companies. So now that I have my own research site, and I have, I was a contract auditor for a long time within pharmaceuticals. I wanted to open up my own research site, and I was looking for an accountant. And I thought, I need to go to accountant. There was a business event, and that's when I met my friend Ruth. She's an accountant. She's a veteran Marine. And she was back in the military. She was in there for 17 years, but she went in the 80s. And at the event, we just started chit-chatting, and we became the best of friends. And I told her, I said, well, I was in the Navy, and I whispered it. Yeah. And she was like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I don't ever talk about it. And you didn't see it in my business. I never told anyone this was a veteran-owned business. I never said anything about it. I think like years ago, I got a letter from the VA saying, I guess they saw I was getting older, and they were like, hey, maybe you can qualify now. And I filled it out, and they were like, oh, well, you make too much money now, so that's why you don't qualify. No, you can't use the VA. I said, okay, well, I'll never use anything. Why are you even contacting me if you literally don't want you don't want anything to do with me? Oh, and it's almost like a kick in the gut every time that they, because it's like, it's a reminder. And I think I mentioned to you in the past, like literally when I left the military, I blocked everyone's name. And, after the last time we talked, it's been about a week since we talked, a few names have come back. I literally could not remember anyone's name, because it was such a trauma that I cannot remember people's name. I remember one chief. I remember one asshole in my department. I don't remember even the girls who were my friends, who we used to go shopping. I remember we went out to go to do circles, and we ended up in Jacksonville. We went to the mall. I can't remember anybody's name. Right. So it was just like I totally blocked it. And every time the VA sends me a letter to say, hey, maybe you want to use the VA, and I fill it out and they say no, that's another kick in the gut. So finally my friend was like, you have to be proud of and my thing was like, I wasn't in long enough. It was like almost I was ashamed. Like I didn't even make it to 2 years. Oh, I got out because I was pregnant. And after we sat there, and I met some other ladies who were, Army vet, Air Force vet, we became really close friends, Marine vet, Navy vet, we all sit together. And it was like, it's not about how much time you were in. I don't care if you were there one day. It was the fact that we made the decision that we were going to protect our country. We made the decision that not everyone in this world is making, that we said, we want to do this for our country. Because that was ultimately what I wanted. I wanted to protect my country. I was here for my country. we didn't think about a war happening back in the 80s, but it happened, right? Desert Storm happened. As soon as I got out, it happened. Then people were in shock that we were going to war. And I was like, that's what we joined for. We were willing to take a bullet for our country.
Right.
Well, not everyone, I came to find out, not everyone thinks that way, right? So the fact that we even signed that first day and we put our hand up and we said, we're going to do this, that should be honored. Right. And I shouldn't be ashamed that I wasn't there more than 24 months or whatever that the VA is telling me you weren't in long enough. You know, that's where, and I'm angry now because it comes back. And this is what my friends would tell me. They were like, you know, don't be ashamed about it. You made a decision that other people in this world don't, you know, the majority of the people don't do. Right. And you are a veteran from day one. The minute you sign that paperwork, you are a veteran. And I don't care if you got discharged dishonorably or honorably, whatever. Obviously, honorably means something, but you know, there were so many things happening in the 80s. People were overweight, they got kicked out. If people were gay, they got kicked out. You know, they got dishonorable discharge, and now we're okay with it. I mean, you know, if you were found out that maybe you went to a communist party, and now we have a whole communist party completely running, you know, trying to get into our Senate. I mean, you know, and back in the day, people got kicked out for these reasons, and they left with a dishonorable discharge. It didn't matter what they were doing. And why is this okay? I mean, this is what I wouldn't talk about it. And it was so sad that I didn't talk about it. I should have had support. I should have had veteran friends, because no one understands what we've gone through. And we could sit there and we could explain it to our family. We could sit there and we can talk to anyone else. The fact was that when we signed up, we were doing something for our country, and then they went against us. And that is the biggest disappointment you could feel. I mean, it's just a horrible feeling. When I explain it to someone else, they're like, yeah, I get it. But when I explain it to you, who you're a veteran, you get exactly what I'm saying. And that was what I was missing in my life. I didn't realize that every time I would sit there and tell somebody, well, yeah, I was, but I don't talk about it. It was like, oh, okay. And even when you explain it to your kids and everything, no one really understands you like another veteran and another veteran woman. And that was the biggest thing, is that another veteran woman. So then we, you know, we become very vocal about veterans. It is, you know, we are a veteran owned business. I have a friend who is working in the VA, and she was like, she said, Marjorie, you need to get your paperwork in, because, you know, I have tinnitus, I have vertigo forever. I believe because I slept on top of weapons, I had a complete hysterectomy at the age of 33. I mean, they had to take everything out. I had polyps on my gallbladder, which is exposure radiation. And I remember being on the boat. You know, everybody in the submarines used to wear those Geiger counters. And I remember asking the chief, how come we're not wearing Geiger counters? And he's like, you're being ridiculous. You're not being exposed to anything. And I'm thinking, but we're putting the weapons, the bombs into the submarine. How the hell are the submariners exposed, but we're not? Right. You know what? You need to quit whining and complaining and get back to work. That was his answer. Right. But we never wore Geiger counters because I was being ridiculous. You know, that was his response. You're just a whiny woman. You're just a whiny woman. And what are you even doing here? You know what? If you had a problem with it, you shouldn't be here. That was their answer. That was always their answer. But anyway, so everyone supporting me and pushing me to put in my paperwork, see if I qualify for disability. And I tell you, you know, it was just so hard. And I thought, you know, I can do this. And I really wanted to be a part of talking to other veteran women. But I also realized that it hurts me and it affects me. And it's brought back trauma. Like I tell you, like I could smell the pier, I could smell the submarines, I could smell the fuel, I can taste. I mean, PTSD, I guess. I don't know. VA's denied it, so I have to go back and keep going on. The point was that, you know, I requested my records, and my friend made sure I filled out the paperwork, and the records arrived right away. I'm not going to say that it was an issue. They got there right away. And I looked at them and I started to read, and I thought, I can't believe I lived this life. And I took those records and I threw them in a box, and they sat there for about 8 months. It was 6 to 8 months. I wouldn't follow up. And all of my friends kept saying, Marjorie, you have to go back. We have to take you to, like, no, you know, you need to get the paperwork in and everything else. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. I'm too busy. I have other things going on in my life. And so finally, my friend Ruth came and she said, I'm picking you up tomorrow. I made an appointment for you. Our other friend already put you on the calendar. I'm picking you up tomorrow. We're going to the base. And I thought, okay, well, shit, let me grab my records. I grabbed my records, and I was like, no big deal. It's just paperwork. And I felt like I was having a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And when I arrived on there, the hospital, and my friend showed her ID, and there's a military guy sitting there, I couldn't breathe. And I'm walking in there, and the whole time I was there, I was on edge. I couldn't breathe. And, we've had a discussion about it. It's because, we're working in a professional environment. I've been in a professional environment. I don't have a problem saying what I have to say in a very professional manner. But I always feel when I'm around someone who's in the military that I have to be on the defensive because I never know what's going to come out of someone's mouth. Right. And that's how I feel. Now, it might not be true because for some reason, men who were in the military, who were, not all of them, but a lot of them were horrible people, feel that when they're around veteran women, that they can just open their mouth and say whatever they want. In the real world, in the professional world, you don't do that. You don't work at a pharmaceutical company and think that you can walk in a room and just talk to anyone any way you want to. And so then I feel that when I'm around veteran men, it's like no one has been disrespectful. I think one time somebody said they were going to kind of push their way in, and I pushed the guy back and I said, what the hell? What are you doing? Like, stay on your lane over there. I'm always on the defensive because I always feel like someone is going to think that because we're veteran women, you can say whatever you want to say. Right. And that's not something that I'm going to allow. But I don't feel that way about my everyday life because that's not the real world, right? But anyway, so I said, this is the problem that I'm dealing with right now because it's been 30 years, and pretty much I blocked everything. Right. I moved on with my life. I thought, it was no point even being in the service. No one helped me afterwards. I felt lost. I was confused. What am I going to do now? What did I do? Why did I get out? I mean, it was just a horrible feeling that you feel so like you're just like thrown out of the house, and it's like, figure it out on your own. And so then I moved past that. And so 30 years later, now, I finally, right before COVID happened, I got a letter and I was, approved for tinnitus and vertigo. Not all of the vertigo. I guess the day I went, I wasn't dizzy enough. So I have to now search for medical records to prove. PTSD, they said I never made my appointments, which no one ever contacted me or anything. And apparently that's the norm, where they say, we send you a letter, we contacted you, we emailed you. But it's not true. So they denied it. They denied all of the other issues that I had, all the female issues I had. They said it was not enough. And it was the day right before COVID, everybody was leaving their office. So that was last year. So at least, I got in at 20% right now, disability. Tinnitus is, that is just the constant noise and the screaming in my ear. But then I realized while I was talking to other people, the fact that I'm smelling and I'm hearing and I'm tasting, and I didn't realize how hypervigilant I always was. And I thought everyone thought that way, the things that would get me so angry or just constantly like, this is disrespectful, or I thought this was everyone's normal behavior. I have daughters, and my daughters, they walk around life, and I'm like, why are you not paying attention? And it was like, I kept thinking, why is everyone walking around like life, not paying attention to the dangers around us? But apparently that's not how the real world works. And that's not how everyone really thinks. They're not constantly thinking about being in danger. I am a true believer in having weapons. I am a true believer in protecting my family. And I tell you, I had booby traps in my house, for years. I still do. I mean, because I have an alarm here, I have an alarm there. If you come in through this door, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. I mean, I walk into a room and I have to see where's the exit. Where's the exit? I can't sit. Now I can sit here because this is my office, but I can't sit with my back against the door. If I go to a restaurant, and it's a constantly vigilant of what's happening because I never know what's going to happen. And that's not normal thinking. I mean, not normal, but I mean, it's not what everybody is thinking. And I didn't realize that. I just thought everybody's walking around, looking to get in trouble. So anyway, so that's my story. So now I'm dealing with the VA. It was wonderful speaking to you because I know that we're going to push forward. I spoke with all of my friends, and we're going to push forward because we all kind of feel the same way, where we just kind of moved on. I mean, I'm pretty much one of the greatest in my field. I have to brag. At least I think I am, or everyone around me tells me. And I'm very proud of everything I've done. I raised my children alone. I raised my children to be professionals. they're both professionals. One of them is a partner here in the business. We are constantly looking at the future, because I mean, that's our life. Having to deal with everything that I'm dealing with again now, it's almost kind of going back, and it's causing me all of this anxiety that I was just like, I had put it away and thrown it back. But I know that this is something that I have to do. I have to deal with everything that's coming, and I have to do because, I deserve that. Someone should have helped me. Someone should have helped me when I needed help. Someone should have at least directed me, or someone should have said, you know what, you did this. Hey, let me help you put a resume together. If that's the only thing that they would have done, I could have seen that, okay, I have better options in life than having to go become a welder and have to, do ditches and become a sandblaster. So I tell people I've had 20 careers, and I'm constantly looking to better our lives. We always want more. I know that we deserve more, but going back to Clubhouse has been amazing. I went on, I've gone into a couple of the veteran groups, and I think I mentioned it to you. I got into the veteran group and I was so nervous. I'm never nervous speaking in front of anybody. I mean, I did training and protocols and everything else in pharma. And in there, I was all shaky and nervous, because again, it's that thing, like, you never know, someone's going to say the wrong thing. But it's been amazing because there's so much help out there now, and everyone is sharing so much. I mean, everybody's just like, hey, I have this, or, log into this and I can help you with this, or I can help you with that. And it's just it seems like more of a caring community, or at least it's not acceptable not to be caring, right? So, I mean, back in the past, it was okay to tell someone you need to be barefoot and pregnant. I don't think that's going to fly so well nowadays, right?
Right.
So, I mean, so that's the difference, I think. And it seems like a very caring group out there. Obviously, people have gone through a lot of trauma with all of the wars that we've had, and maybe that's what's made them a little bit more of caring people. But it's been amazing speaking to the veterans there, and that's how I met you. And it's been amazing because I'm like, okay, we're going to keep pushing forward. We're going to keep pushing forward, and we're going to try to get all the help that we need, so that we can move on. Because I want to move past this. I want to move past this. But now I tell everyone, I'm a Navy vet. I'm a Navy vet. I was a torpedoman in the Navy. I did as much time as I did. I think it was like 22 months or something. I went in to serve my country. And so, now I'm proud of it. Now I speak about it. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from now on. So that's my short story, guys.
Marjorie, I love it. I love hearing you tell your story. We talked for a while last week, but as soon as you started talking in that Clubhouse veteran room and you said, I'm just now starting to come out to tell people that I'm a veteran, like, it triggered in me, like, I know that, like, I know exactly where she is, because my story is like, I got out 8 years ago, but it wasn't until I started talking to the guys with Veteran Trash Talk that I really admitted, like, in passing, every once in a while I would tell people that I had been in the Army, because it was like my whole life. Like, I was in for 13 years,
Wow.
and it was almost hard to avoid saying it sometimes, but I didn't like it. It was like, cussing at people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was an Army veteran. And I was so nervous about connecting with other women veterans because of how we are, right? And we kind of talked about it last week too, where it's like, you never knew when a woman would come up, like, what kind of woman are you? Are you going to sleep your way to the top, or are you going to work hard? And, if you didn't really connect with a lot of women, or like, I didn't, like, I connected with some, but a lot of times, like, the women that I connected with were officers and I was enlisted, so I couldn't hang out with them.
Exactly.
We would talk at work, but then that was about it. And we couldn't really form good friendships. But, it was just like, there was that level of untrust within the female community as well, because of how we were treated and these boxes that we were put into, and then we would put each other into these boxes. And so when you said that, I just immediately clicked with you, and I was like, I know exactly where she's coming from. And I knew I had to talk to you. And so I love sharing your story, because I know for a fact, if you feel that way and I feel that way, then our listeners I have felt that way.
There's a lot that feel that way.
And
Yeah, and I mean, and I remember when, when I was on the boat, I mean, it really was, who you were buddies with, who you hung out with after work, who you hung out with, on the boat, who you got drunk with, and those were the ones that got put in the good positions. I was out there cleaning toilets because I didn't party, because I didn't hang out with the chiefs. I didn't sleep around with anyone, I mean, and that was the thing. And I remember I had one of the officers come in there, and I was working at I was working with one of the chiefs, and I was his assistant, the one in the kitchen, and I was helping him out. We were trying to get some paperwork done because we were going to get like some kind of inspection. And this officer was known for promoting the pretty women, promoting, the giggly girls, the ones that went along. I mean, I don't know what else was happening, but he was known for that. And I remember he walked in, and he's just standing next to my desk, and I'm like, what is this guy doing here? And he said, you would be so much prettier if you put on a little bit of makeup.
oh,
And I said, well, I'm so glad that this is not a beauty pageant then.
no kidding.
And my chief came out, and my chief went off on him. Like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you even bothered? Why would you even say that to her? So there were good people in there too, and I just thought, but it made me so uncomfortable because we had to deal with this officer, right? And we had to take paperwork. So every time I had to go do something or take something there, I was thinking, I hope this guy doesn't say anything to me, and it was the same thing with like chiefs. I had a couple of chiefs, that I respected. And I always remember there was one chief that I respected. And I thought, man, this man is, he's amazing. He's an amazing chief. I mean, he was just such a respectful person. And I thought, and because I didn't hang out with anybody or after work or anything, or, so I didn't know what happened whenever anybody was out. And I remember we went out, like I said, we went out we were out to sea. And I remember we got to some port. And, every port in the Navy had a bar. And so I went to the mall with a bunch of the girls, and I said, well, let's go back to the boat. And they were like, no, let's stop by, let's have a beer and everything else. And I was like, I don't really want to, but I didn't want to be like, Marjorie, they called me Goose. They were like, Goose is again, not wanting to hang out. I thought, well, let me try. I went to the bar with them, and, we had a bunch of shopping bags and everything else. And, all the men, everybody from our department was at the bar. And, the chief that I had so much respect for, he comes up to me and he's like, hey, it's good to see you out here with us. And I thought, okay, well, cool. He was way older than I was, I was 19, 20 years old then. And he said, you look so nice. And I thought, well, thanks, chief. You don't think anything of it,
Yeah.
Wow, out of uniform, you sure look pretty, and there it came. And, and I tell people, obviously men have come on to us, but it was such a heartbreak because you had such a respect for this person.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, Chief is seeing the kind of work that I do. He respects me as a sailor. I'm here doing my job, and here it comes.
Right.
And he made a pass on me. He made a pass. And I said, Chief, I said, I know you're married and I'm married. I said, so it's not okay that you're saying what you're saying to me. I said, so I'm gonna go ahead and go before you continue. And I went up to the girls and I said, I'm heading back to the boat. Let me take your bags and everything. And they were like, no. And I was like, no. And I remember just standing outside waiting on that stupid bus to come and pick us up to take us to the boat. And I just sat there with everybody's bags thinking, I was just so heartbroken.
Right.
But then I thought, it doesn't matter the work that I do. It's not going to matter. It's just that I'm not playing the game. I'll never get promoted. I'll never do better in this department. I'll never, because I'm not going to play that game. And it was so heartbreaking because it's someone you respect so much. He was way older than I was. So it was almost like a father figure.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try to explain it and men are like, well, they're going to come on to you. How about, one of the males and your buddies with one of your chief and your chief comes on to you? Right. What do you think would have felt like? Someone that you're working so hard and you're trying to get promoted and you're trying to do the best that you can as a sailor, because that's what I went in there, I was doing my job. Mm-hmm. The one person that I felt any respectful in that department came on to me. First chance he had. First time I had ever been out. Came on to me like that. And it was such a heartbreak. And, and I never told anyone. And I sat there because I would never tell my husband, and I just sat there and I thought, I can't believe it. And every time I would look at him after that, it was like I couldn't even look at him anymore.
Right.
And every time he would come to talk to me, it was like I always made sure that someone else was around. And if I would see him coming towards me, I would try to walk away. And I don't know if maybe he felt bad about it. I don't really care. But the point was, I was a young person, and he was a person that was in a position of power. He was a senior chief, and I had so much respect for him, and he came on to me.
Right.
And I thought, that's why we blocked it, right? Because it was almost like it was a paternal, a father figure, and that person came on to you, and it was so disgusting because it makes you feel disgusting, like you're doing something wrong.
Right. And too, like, cause that happened to me too. Once when I was in Korea, but it was my sergeant major. So I was in a position where I was a platoon sergeant. I was in charge of 23 soldiers, and I had no other NCO, and I had no officer in my platoon. And my first sergeant had been relieved of duty for inappropriate behavior. So there was nobody really for me to talk to. And I would go to battalion and talk to my sergeant major, and he would guide me, because I'd be like, I was like a pretty new NCO, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in charge of all these soldiers. So he would guide me and talk to me, and I respect the same thing. I very much respected him. He would tell me, like, you're an excellent soldier, you're an excellent leader, you're doing all the things right, and it was never inappropriate. And then I saw him out in town, because I was like kind of friends with his driver. And I saw him and his driver out in town as we were like, base was closing, we had curfew in Korea. And he's like, hey, just come ride with me. I've got Sergeant Major's car. And Sergeant Major was with him. And Sergeant Major ended up driving. So his driver and I were in the back, and Sergeant Major driving us back to base. And he asked me, he said, hey, Sergeant, so who else are you giving chubbies to besides old driver here and me? Right? Like, I don't remember the driver's name. We were buddies, but I don't, just like you, like I forget everybody's name. I'm like, dump it. But he asked me who I was giving chubbies to besides him and his driver. And same thing. I was just like, what are you talking about? I was so upset. Hang on. I was so upset. Like, what? Like, no, like you've been like guiding me and leading me and mentoring me. And I thought for sure I could trust you. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It's heartbreaking, and it's like you start questioning all that time that you spent with your mentor and thinking, well, were they helping me because they think that I'm a good soldier or sailor, or were they helping me because they were trying to get in my pants eventually? It's like you question all of that stuff because that one comment that they make to you, and you're like,
and that affects you. Things affect you because of the fact that we were so young. And that was what is also so what makes me so angry now. It's the fact that we were young, and people say, well, you were naive and everything. Yes, I was naive. Like you mentioned, is the chief helping me out? Are the people helping me out because they really want to help me out, or are they expecting something? Or are they hoping that maybe someday, something will happen? And that's the only reason why anyone helped out. But it affects you because it affected my marriage, because you're constantly on the defensive. Absolutely. This man is bringing me flowers. Why are you bringing me flowers? What did you do? What's behind that? Or, I love you. Yeah, well, you said it one time, but you didn't say it 2 times. I mean, it was just the stupidest thing. Would cause arguments because you're constantly on the defensive, because even the person that you love and that loves you, you're thinking they're going to do something wrong, or you're always expecting something is going to go wrong. And so before it happens, let me attack you first.
Well, and I'm sure too, because you see a lot of people cheating on their spouses. Like your first husband had a different lady to report. So, I mean, that stuff sticks with you too. And because you see that at work all the time.
Yeah.
And then it's already happened to you too. Like that affects you as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So
it was both men and women, because like I said, I was on the Love Boat, and it was known that, there was all kinds of stuff happening on that boat. When the boat would go out to sea, people would go do whatever they would do. I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't care who's doing what. I mean, I just wanted to do my job and be gone because it was so disappointing. It was like
Mhm.
it was such an unprofessional environment. And like I said, I thought I was going to go into the military, that it was going
Right.
to be so professional. And I was so proud of my uniform and I was so proud of what I was doing. And I thought, here I go, I'm going to make a difference. Naive and young, this is it. I'm doing something for my country. And then you go in there and yes, you're dealing with human beings, but it was like a free for all. It was known. And that was what was sad about it. It was that it was known. It's not like it was a secret.
Like everybody
Everybody.
just accepts it as normal.
Exactly. And and that was the same too back in the day. If you were either if you were in the Navy, you were either a whore or you were gay, one or the other. And that was the same. And men would come up and say that to you. But what are you, a
Mhm.
whore or are you gay? Like, what is that? I mean,
Yeah.
what real world job would you talk to anyone like that?
Right.
I mean, once you get out of the military, where is that acceptable? Why is it okay that it happens in the military? It's not okay. And what's really sad to me is that these young women are going into the military and they have to laugh along with it. Let me tell you one thing. It was a couple of years ago. I was at an event here in Orlando, and it was a health fair. And we do all kinds of study here. So we were at the health fair. We were out there talking to people about it. And then there were some. I don't want to say too much in case they do listen. It seemed like it was a recruiting department came in from the military, and we were talking to some. They kind of set their table up next to us, and there was a guy. He was an officer, obviously, and then there was the enlisted woman there. I heard him, and he's talking, ha 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 ha. He's making these, he's laughing, and you could just see her. She would laugh along too, and the whole time I'm just kind of, I start getting defensive because I see this young woman. Then the more I'm looking at her, you could just see she was uncomfortable.
Mm.
He's laughing and he's saying stuff, and I don't really know what he was saying, or I wasn't trying to listen. But every time I looked over at her, she would just laugh, and then she looked at me, and it was almost kind of this look like, help me.
Right.
And I told my daughter who was with me, I said, this poor girl, I said, I don't know what she's going through. I said, but look at her face. And it just made me so angry. Like, I
Mhm.
wanted to go and punch this guy out, because I'm like, you have higher rank. She's sitting there eating crap because she feels that she has to. So as the event was happening, I went and there were some other veteran people there. And there was one there that was, talking about, they had paperwork for like harassment or military sexual trauma or anything like that. So I grabbed like a handful of it and I pretended I was walking around to the different tables. And I was like, here, guys, here's some extra information. And I went up to her and I said, here's some information. I said, I'm handing it out to everybody. We all have rights. We all have we should, report anything that's inappropriate and everything else. And I just kind of gave it to her and I just kept walking around, and he just stood there and looked at me like he wanted to punch me out. And I thought, I wish he would, because now here I am, an older lady. I'm a grandma now. And, and it was this face. It was just, I can't forget her face. And it was almost like, yes, I have to laugh, but when she would look away, it was almost a sadness. And I think about this poor young woman, and it reminds me of who we were. I was, so long ago, and like I said, it's been 30 years, and it just makes me so sad because it's not okay. That is not okay. And when you come out of the military, that's not okay behavior. And so what happens to what I've noticed is women who do come out of the military, when they're put in these professional environments and they talk the way that they talk, and some of it is vulgar and some of it is not okay, and some of it is like, it's like, wait, you don't have to speak that way, because you felt like you had to be part of the boys group when you were in the military. You don't have to do that. It's not okay. You shouldn't have to do it. We're not the same. And if I don't, and if I'm not okay with someone speaking or saying things that's inappropriate, or that I feel that is disrespectful, I should be able to walk away, or I should be able to say, you need to stop right now. And these young women don't know that. And they don't know that they can do that, and that's just any human being. We should not be treated that way. Anyway, it
Right.
just, like I said, it makes me sad for that young person that I was,
Right.
and everything that I went through, and that I probably could have saved my second marriage if I would have known what I know now.
Right.
So.
Well, and Marjorie, I've said this in episodes past too, but you haven't heard it, but like I was that girl where I kind of developed like a second personality where I was like vulgar, and a lot of times I would start conversations that way to try to like prevent it from happening, because it was like a protective measure.
Yes.
And I thought that I was doing the right thing, like to fit in and like not be so pushed out because I was already like hated. I was the bitch, because I wasn't sleeping around.
You would control the room when you would do that, right?
Right, exactly.
It would come at you, hey, I'm coming in here and I'm gonna say this and that because hey, I'm controlling the room.
Exactly.
That's what you were doing.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, now I know instead of doing that, I should have been like, don't talk like that in front of me. Exactly what you're saying. And that's another message that I want to get out to our women, because I mean, not to feel guilty if you did that, but to understand that it's okay to not be okay with that sort of behavior and that sort of talk around you, because all of that does is makes things worse. It perpetuates it, so you're not really protecting yourself. But I had to really work on myself for a long time to like get past that, because I was so angry at the person that I had become.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when I went to work for General Dynamics, it was also a mostly male environment. And I worked in that company for 3 years. And I was known like, don't say jokes around Marjorie because she's not going to put up with it. Because I would walk in there and men would start saying stuff. I would walk out of the room. I don't care what's happening. I would walk out of the room. And it was like, oh. Or they would start, and I was like, you can take that home, but don't say it in front of me. And I remember, because my second husband, we were working together and nobody knew we were dating. And, we were there for a long time. And I remember it, and he told me, he said, I remember I went to get a soda out of the machine, and there were some guys there, and I was like, hey guys. And they were like, oh, hey Goose, hey Marjorie. And I was like, hey, and I walked away. So then they were like, damn, that Marjorie, blah, blah, blah. They were saying all kinds of stuff about me. And so my ex-husband, who I was dating, but no one knew we were dating, he was like, yeah, you think she's hot? And they were like, yeah, man, I could do blah, blah, blah. They were talking all this garbage. Because if you're really interested, I can get to her. Oh, no, don't say anything like that to her. She doesn't play. Don't say that to her. No. I don't want any trouble. Do not say anything. We would never say that in front of her. And when he told me that, I felt proud. Right. I felt good about that. And when I was, I had all kinds of issues I had to fight in that company too. And I remember I had to go talk to one of the general managers there because I had one of the managers thinking that he was going to harass me too. And I told him, I said, let me tell you something. I said, I've been working for this company for over 3 years, and my name has never been on the bathroom wall. I said, that's the person that I am. I said, so I'm not going to put up with anyone saying anything about me. I said, you can walk into any men's room. My name's not on that wall. I said, but like I said, it's okay if you were young, because that is a way of surviving, right? Because you're in an environment, you're like, I have no choice. I live here. Right. Tomorrow I have to be back. It's not like you can quit this job, right? You can't walk away from this job. You're stuck in there. So you have to figure out what's going to be the best I can do here. Yeah, you know what? I was labeled that bitch because, like I said, I raised with brothers. I was raised to be a fighter. My dad would always be like, I was raised in New York City. We had to fight all the time, back in the 80s. It was a crazy time. And, and I had an attitude. But, there was also that fear, because I remember one of the guys telling me one time, like, yeah, you're such a bitch. But you know what? Accidents happen all the time when we're out at sea.
Wow.
And I remember saying to him, I said, you need to be careful because you could have an accident. But I knew but you know what? I would say things like that. I was small.
Right.
I was only 5'4". This guy was like over 6 feet tall, like over 200 pounds. And I thought, they would always put me on the midnight watch. How do I know this guy's not hiding somewhere and literally throw me overboard and nobody will ever find me?
Right.
So then you're constantly on the defensive. You're constantly looking around corners because, I had that tough exterior, and I would talk a lot of trash, and I was like, would bring it right back, and I was really fast. That stays in you because you're thinking, this guy hates me. This guy's looking to do something to me.
Right.
And then when I would get off the boat, at time I would say, what if this person followed me home? And that's where that paranoia starts coming in, right? That hypervigilance. What if this guy hates me on the boat? How do I know he's not going to follow me? You know, we've heard of women getting attacked when they got off the boat. And I was thinking, what if somebody's hiding in my bush? And it was like a constant thinking, like, okay, who's coming after me?
Right.
You know, and it's just so sad because you can't quit. You can't walk away. And like I said, God is good because he's been good to me. And if it wasn't for the Master Chief, and I remember it was two Master Chiefs because the one Master Chief retired, he started the paperwork, and the second Master Chief finished the paperwork when I got out. Master Chief Larson and Master Chief Janikowski. And I don't know how old they would be now because they were way older then, and they were wonderful people. They were people that you could respect and just the kind people. And that taught me also, you know, you can be in charge and you can be kind. And that's how I run my businesses. You know, you can be in charge and you can be kind. You don't have to mistreat people. And people will do things and do their job if you treat them with respect. And that's not what we've got, right? When we were in the military, it was like, let's put fear, or let's harass you, or let's disrespect you and make you feel small, and maybe you'll get your job done. And that's not how it works. That's not how life is, you know?
No. Definitely. So Marjorie, tell me about your business. We want to promote your business as well.
Okay, well, like I said, I am the owner of Topaz Clinical Research, and we are located in Apopka, Florida, which is a little bit north of Orlando. We do clinical research trials from pediatrics to adults. So I have been in clinical research for the last 18 years. I guess it's been 18 years. I've been working in all aspects of clinical research. I've worked as a study coordinator, regulatory, then I became a monitor, working with different clinical research organizations, working with different sponsors, which are pharmaceutical companies. I became a contractor, which was the best thing I could have done. It pushed me to start my own business, which I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to start my business, but because I was a single mom, I had to keep a steady job. Like I had that fear of what if it doesn't work, right? Or how am I going to feed my kids? So finally, by the time my girls got into college and everything, and I was like, okay, now I was traveling all over the US because I traveled nonstop. You know, I would travel sometimes Monday to Friday and be home Friday evening and traveling Monday. And I did that for about 2.5 years right before I opened up my research site. And then I said, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore. I have to open up the site. And in 2016, I opened the doors. I rented the space. It was a small town. I went to the Chamber of Commerce and said, what is your growth? What's happening in this town? And they said, within 5 years, we're going to have this and that. So it's been since 2016, and the area here has, like, I don't know, 10 times. It's grown so much here. We're on the perfect location. So what I do is I pretty much am I'm the executive director, and I do the marketing, the networking, any of the regulatory documentations to start up any of the studies. Right now, we just got approved for an OCD trial, obsessive compulsive disorder, for people who are already taking medication, which is something I'm very proud of, you know, that I was able to get. And we have about 5 different doctors working for us. The doctors are contractors. They come in, they do their part, and then they go and we run the entire study. I am trying my best to get a PTSD study. I feel passionate about that. And so unfortunately, because I never said I was a veteran, maybe that's why they never gave it to me, but they gave it to another research site in Orlando. So now I am promoting, I am a veteran-owned business. I'm going to try to see if I can get some kind of government contract, so we can try to get those PTSD studies here and just help out. So we do everything, like I said, pediatrics, infant formula studies. We do Alzheimer's studies. We're doing OCD, pediatric migraine, dermatology studies. I mean, we're doing everything here. And we're trying to bring education of clinical research to the community. And we're a bilingual site. That's one of the things that Orlando didn't have in the past. We run all of our studies in English and Spanish. We're trying to get someone in here that speaks Creole, because we have a huge Creole population. And we have someone that hopefully will be working with us soon who speaks Portuguese, because we have a huge Brazilian population here. So that's what I do. And I'm hoping to be able to expand past clinical research throughout Florida. I mean, that's the goal, that's the dream. And that's what we're doing here. And hopefully we're making a difference in the community. So that's my biggest passion, is working with the community.
That's incredible. So who are you looking for to help in the community, like as far as if they were wanting to come to you and connect with you, who's kind of your ideal client or person that you are looking
Well, yeah, like if you go onto our website, topazclinicalresearch.com, we actually list our studies there. So we have infant formula studies. We actually need to update it because we're getting about 8 different studies coming up right now. We just closed some of the studies. So for our infant formula studies, we are trying to get in touch with pregnant moms. And this is amazing because the companies are creators of formula that's already on the market. And what they need to do is market, do clinical trials before they can put a new formula on the market. So what's coming up is amazing. What they have, one of the well-known formulas, that's one of the most expensive formulas. If you know anything about formulas, that company is one of the studies that we're doing. And we're giving free formula to 2 years. The catch is we have to get the babies here before day 14. Okay. So once they're 14 days old, 14, I could get them 15, they won't qualify for the study. And the purpose is to give them the formula for 2 years to see their growth. It's amazing the kind of humans that are going to come out of this, because it's just amazing formula. But those are the formula studies. The pediatric migraine is for children who are suffering with pediatric, any type of migraine, and that's up to age 21, because that's considered pediatric population. And like I said, the OCD, we just closed a couple of other studies. We had an Alzheimer's study we just closed out. So OCD is the next big one. We have skin cancer coming up. So that's really exciting. Anyone who has squamous cell, basal cell. So what you're going to be able to do is go on our website, and we're trying to set it up where if you click on the little flyers for each study, and it'll give you like, fill out your information, and you can kind of get an idea of whether you qualify or not. And it's just basic. And then what we'll do is we'll contact you and we can have a one-on-one conversation. We have our study coordinator who will call you and say, yes, you qualify. Or if you're pregnant and it's something you're interested in the future, just give us a call, because these studies are usually open for enrollment for about a year. Okay. So for a year, we can get as many people in. And then after that, it shuts down. And it's all the formula that they want. And the OCD trial is a 10-week OCD trial. So, I mean, I'm really excited about clinical research. That's my passion. I love it. I love what it's bringing to the world. And bottom line is, whether people believe it or not, or, I am very much about health. I am very much about, eating natural. I am all about, making sure that if I can drink a tea instead of taking a pill, I will. But I also believe that if you're sick, you need medicine. If there is something that we can prevent, it needs to be on the market. We can't sit there and say, oh, we hate medicine, and sit there with high blood pressure. So what are we going to do? Yeah, we can exercise, we can try to food, but sometimes that doesn't work. So what do we need to do? We need to have medication. And I also want to let everybody know, don't forget that everything that's on the shelf in any of the CVS's or Walgreens had to go through clinical trials. So when you participate in clinical trials, you don't need insurance, you get paid participating, and you're making a difference in the future. Your data is very important. And especially minorities. We need a lot more minorities in clinical trials, because if we think about it, the data is not complete data, right? You hear that a lot about, we don't have enough minorities. We don't have enough minorities. Well, because, culturally, that's something we try to do, take care of ourselves with our food and home remedies. But we do need minorities to participate, because we need data for every race. And that's what's really important. So anyway, that's me and my clinical research. I
love it. I love it, Marjorie. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll make sure that I've got your website shown on the screen so that people can screenshot it or type it in.
We are the big purple sign.
Yeah, I love that. And I just have to say, Marjorie, again, I've said this to you so many times, but I love your story and I love talking to you, because there are so many lessons if we're listening. I mean, you have such a powerful story of, you patriotism to your country, and then getting in and being so disappointed because it's like, a frat party going on and not like what you expected at all, but you still persevered through everything and fought through it. And then, were left out on your own. I mean, so many people can hear this and be able to apply that to their own lives, like either one piece of your story or a lot of pieces of your story, you know, because when you get out and you just felt like, oh, well, we're just throwing you away. You didn't serve long enough, you know, and kind of belittle your time and then not offer you any help. And I mean, whether you served for 2 days or 10 years or 20 years, whatever. I mean, I do feel like even now that system is failing as far as what we know is offered to us. I mean, like, you know, you were a torpedo man, and I'm sure there were so many different things that you could have had on your resume to get you a good job when you got out. But, you know, we're not taught that stuff. And to me, it's like insane that there's such a gap there. But I really hope that our listeners are taking this stuff in and understanding that, you know, I mean, we have a lot of resources out there now, which I'm trying to get, you know, talk to people and have more people come on and share those resources with our veterans so that we, you know that you don't have to just go to the VA. Sorry for the dog. But, you know, there are so many resources, but also even if you feel alone and feel like you weren't given any help, like you are such an inspiration and saying, well, you know, my children were my why. Like I knew I had to do it. I had to figure something out. And you did. I mean, you figured out a lot of some things until you landed where you can be an entrepreneur and really do this, but you've made a difference all along the way. You know, I am imagining that a lot of that was a lot of struggle, like while you were, you know, trying to find your place in these different places and the way that you were treated as a civilian too. And learning new things all the time. I'm imagining that was a struggle the entire time, that it wasn't just like a cakewalk, but you made it, and you're strong, you're independent, and you're really a powerhouse. And I just love this. So I hope that you have inspired our listeners the way that you're inspired.
I hope so. I hope so.
Really love it.
I just want to say one last thing. You know, I just want everyone to remember that everything is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, our highs and our lows are temporary. Because trust me, like you said, there were times where I thought I'm about to pull every hair off my head. And I would just sit there and I was like, you do get to that point where you feel desperate. You're like, what do I do now? What do I do now? I don't know what to do. And you just sit there and, you know, tomorrow's going to be another day. And there's going to be, and when you are in the hole, you're going to get out of the hole, right? Because there's only one way out of the hole. You got to climb out. And so everything is temporary. And what I've also heard is I can't be happy when things are great because I know it's going to get bad. Yeah, that's life. Things are bad, things are good. Things are bad, things are good. But what's important is when you're in the good and when the bad comes, you know you're going to be able to get out of it. You've done it before. And so always remember everything is temporary. You know, like you mentioned, if the VA doesn't help you, there are so many good people in this world. There really are good people. We just have to ask for help or just show up. I had somebody call me one day and he's like, look, I have PTSD. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I don't know what to do because I don't have a study for you, but hey, here's a number. Here's a doctor that I know. And the guy was just like, thank you. I just needed someone. It just caught me off guard because I had no idea. I mean, and he was like, I see you were in the military and maybe you can help me. And I thought, okay, well, what can I do? Let me stop what I'm doing and let me try to help this person. And it's the same thing everywhere. There's people always willing to help. There's people that are saying whatever, walk away from those people. You know, that's on them. Everything is going to be temporary. So if you're feeling like there's no way that I can get out of this, or I feel horrible, you know what, tomorrow's another day and you try again tomorrow. And if you don't want to think about it today, don't think about it today, think about it tomorrow. Figure it out. So that's just one of the most important things that I've learned is that everything is temporary. Everything is temporary. So I hope I made a difference, and I hope my words help someone.
Well, they help me, and I mean,
you
really are so inspiring, and I love it. Like it's kind of depressing to hear your story and then put it up to mine because I did serve later, and I'm like, wow, not a lot has changed in the military, no. But it's so inspiring to know that you know, when you are ready to speak up and say, yes, I'm a veteran, there are people waiting for you.
Yes.
And we're ready to lock arms and say, okay, we can do this together and we can connect. And I just love that. And I'm so excited to have met you. And I look forward to
Thank you. And I'm so happy I met you.
our
It
relationship.
was wonderful. We'll have to get real coffee together.
Yes, because we're actually really close by.
Yes, we are. So
Gonna
we
make
have
that
to get
happen.
together.
Yes. All right, Margie.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again. And I'm
Thank
going to
you,
just
Leah.
give another shout out for our sponsor, Neuroflow at neuroflow.com. Make sure you check out Marjorie at topazclinicalresearch.com and see if you or someone you know can be a part of some of that clinical research that is going to be life-changing for all of us. And if you need some further guidance or help, you can reach out to us anytime. You can find me on social media at Leah BE Day. It's LEAHBEDAY, or just follow us at Veteran Trash Talk. Marjorie, do you have any further, any last?
No, you know what? I'm gonna learn from you. I'm learning from all the veterans, and I'm learning that it's okay. Uh, ask for help, which I've asked you also for help, Leah, and I'm just so happy we've met the veterans that I've met, because we don't look at race, we don't look at where we come from, we don't look at any of that. It was always that sisterhood
Yeah.
has always been there, and it's just been beautiful meeting a lot of the female veterans and a lot of the male veterans I've met here lately too, and I know that we can persevere over anything.
Most
So thank you
definitely.
for having me. It was lovely being on here.
Thank you, Marjorie. And I look forward to having you again with Ruth, probably, right?
Yes, 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 yes. I've already asked her.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time, Veteran Trash Talk Female Warrior Edition.